Hello, Janksters, and welcome to another edition of the MagicJank podcast, the weekly show where members of Team MagicJank get together and we talk about whatever's happening during, in the world of Magic the Gathering. My name's Graham. I go by HamHocks42 on the internet, and I'm joined by a couple of lovely gentlemen. First off, we have Carlo Cifaverdo Jr. How we doing, man?
Did he just say lovely gentleman?
Yes.
Hello. My name is Carlo, yes, or C4Redo_Jr. out there on the internet, and it is good. It's been a good week. Lots of Magic playing, so it's always a good week. Good week, right?
Heck yeah, man. Yeah, I'm right there with you. And then next up, we actually have the newest member of Team MagicJank joining us in the studio. Schedules aligned, and we made it happen. Jaffer. Jaffer, how we doing, man? Welcome.
I'm doing well. Hi, thanks for having me. And bad news for you, I'm quitting. Bye.
What? Oh, well, dang it. Well, that was quick. All right. All right. Well, it's been a great show. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Do folks want to let people know where they can find you? Anyway, no.
I'm glad I was able to actually hop on and be a part of one of these. Like today just worked out perfectly for that. But I'm excited to be part of MagicJank, so thanks for having me on the team as well. I know I've been doing things with you guys for a little bit here and there and running into you guys at conventions, and it's always a blast to hang out with you guys.
Absolutely, man. No, I'm really glad that we were able to make it happen, and that things lined up and we got you, man. Because you're what they would call in the industry a good get, if I may say. I'll call it like I see it. All right. So yeah, if you want, but yeah. So by the way, everybody, Jaffer is a fellow streamer. Do you want to give folks kind of the pitch, a little introduction while we're here? Yeah, go take it away,
sure.
good sir.
My name is Jaffer. My real name is Jarman. I know that they're two weird different names, but I am a full-time content creator. I stream Magic the Gathering, Arena, and some Magic Online. Pioneer's my favorite format. I've been playing a lot of Standard because of the current competitive schedule coming up in 2025. If you like Standard or Pioneer content, you can come on my channel sometime over on Twitch. It's just what you see on the screen right here, Jaffer.
And there'll be links in the
cats,
description.
I do have two cats. Raven and Tiberius. You will always see Tiberius plop up here. You'll probably see him at some point in this video. And then, just talk about cats, talk about metal music, pop punk, some anime stuff, and play a lot of Magic. I'm more on the competitive side of Magic things instead of casual, but I feel like I could call myself a competitive casual in a way. Like I still like to have fun with playing the game. I'm not here to just solely just win the game, even though that's fun to do. But and Magic is fun. I've been playing it for like 11 years.
That rules. I dig it. Well, yeah, and I'm glad that we have an official Pioneer correspondent, because that's definitely a format that I know is a blind spot for me. And so knowing that you're fully invested. Also, the timing is pretty great, because one thing that we are going to be talking about later is Pioneer Masters. We're going to have a point where in the not too distant future, like within a month, actually like just a couple weeks now, which is insane to think about because like Foundations just got here, but in a couple of weeks on Arena, Explorer will be no more, and we will have Pioneer on Arena, which, whoa, I don't know about you guys, but I've been saying for, I don't know, the last 3 years, why isn't Pioneer on Arena? And here it is. It's coming.
About time.
It's about time. Yeah. So yeah, we'll get into more of that in a little bit. But first off, the timing actually worked out today because there was actually a tournament. So Jaffer, you actually put on a free to play tournament today as part of the Mosh Pit series, which I got to be honest, I dig it. That's a really fun a really fun vibe. And so how did it go? I mean, we were all three of us happened to be there for various parts of it, but would you mind giving the folks kind of a top-down explanation, kind of what it was and overall how it went?
Yeah. So I myself, I like playing in tournaments. I like playing them in more than hosting them, but there hasn't been really anybody hosting any or that many tournaments here on Arena that often as of recent. And I wanted to host something for people that wanted to play in them. So I decided, like, okay, well, usually I'll host like a small community tournament on like a Wednesday night, but like that's very hard for people to show up to. So I figured, okay, well, I have this Saturday free. I'll schedule this out like 2 weeks after Foundation's release. And we have standard RCQs coming up too. So I scheduled that and beat a lot. At least 70 something people registered, but we only had like 34 show up, I believe. It was still a pretty decent turnout. It was a free to play tournament. I call my tournaments mosh pits, just because it fits my branding. And it was a really diverse meta game. Like Domain and Mono Red made it to the finals, but
Oh my goodness, yeah.
there were some decks out there that were pretty different. Like we did have a Rakdos mid range in the top 8, which looked very different than what you think it would look like. And there was some other things like Mono Green made it to top 8. Mono Green aggro.
That mono green list looked excellent. I gotta say, I was really impressed. Yeah. The one thing that I noticed when I was kind of looking through it, I saw a lot of mono red, and I think the mono green, played by Sours, I think had an opportunity to really take advantage of that matchup. And yeah, it was a great metagame call, and it worked. You know, so there's kind of this question: is mono green back? It's like, well, I don't know. This is a small sample size, and it's only one event, but it looked good here. You know, so I don't know. Maybe there's something there.
We had at least from what I saw, I didn't look at all the list yet, but at least from what I saw, there was 2 mono green decks: Sours, who's a regular viewer of mine, and Go Caliper. And I know Go Caliper is a regular viewer of a lot of the MagicJank people.
Oh yeah,
and Go Caliper made it to top 8, and it looked like that mono green was fine against all the red aggro decks mostly, but I feel like once it goes up against any black mid range deck, it's going to struggle a little bit with how many kill spells they're all running nowadays.
Oh my goodness, yes. Yeah. Turns out those black-based decks are still good. Those black-based mid-range decks, no matter what you pair it with. They, you know, yeah, you could go Rakdos, you can go Golgari, you can go Dimir. You're going to have a good time. Yeah. But yeah, so I don't know what were kind of, so Carlo, what were some of your takeaways from this thing? What were some of the decks that stood out to you? You know, you got the privilege of commentating during the top 8. I was there for the Swiss, and thank you, Jaffer, for tapping us for that. It was a delight.
Carlo, it was a great time.
Yeah, what were some of your takeaways?
It was a great time. You know, I'm glad to see how diverse it was, because that speaks to how great of a format Standard is. That, you know, people can show up with literally whatever they want and they can play and see how they do. And, you know, the metagame definitely showed up, right? You know, there were folks who were playing different versions of Golgari, Dimir, different versions of Mono Red. You know, the one that made the finals, that Mono Red list was just straight red, taking advantage of like Rockface Village for like the Valiant triggers on the mice.
It didn't even have Bolt Wave in it.
Yeah, no Bolt Wave at all. And so they were more interested in creature combat or, you know, racing that way, and totally fine. There were some decks that played like similar to Questing Red. Some that were just Gruul with green for Questing Druid, and some that were playing Naya, playing all the fast lands and being able to play like Lightning Helix and Boros Charm. So it was nice to see even whether or not you like to see mono red or red based strategies. It was nice to see the diverse types of mono red. So that was nice to see. And you know, we were just talking about mono green doing okay, and Go Caliper top 8ing. And I have to tell you, the thing I was most excited to see was an ultimate Vivian Reed today.
Yes.
Not only because I like to, you know, play Planeswalkers every once in a while, but when one ultimates, it gets me a little bit giddy. So when you get to catch that happening, you know, live on coverage, and you're like, okay, well, I'm gonna ultimate my Vivian Reed, and all of my creatures are going to be like basically unkillable the rest of the game. You know, good luck. It's pretty nice, and Vivian Reed provides a nice out for this deck that doesn't normally have draw power, right? That's what mono green struggles in, being able to replenish gas. So they have to be careful in what they play. And Vivian Reed lets you replenish that gas. But not just Vivian Reed. I want to point out another really important creature that, you know, some people might say it's a little bit of a sleeper, but it is Spinner of Souls, which is also from Foundations. And this card is incredible, especially considering you can play Llanowar Elves on turn 1 and then this creature on turn 2. So if they end up destroying your elf or any other creature for that matter, Spinner of Souls is going to roll you into some more gas. So you're going to be able to get more creatures off of that. And it's got some solid stats. A 4/3 does notably block cards like Slick Shot Show Off, even though it might die to Monstrous Rage. But it has the ability to do some attacking and some blocking and some rehashing of some gas that you need. So I was glad to see these, and it's interesting if you take a look at the results from this tournament. Both Go Calper and I think Sours was also playing. Yep, Spinner of Souls. Yep. One big difference between those two lists there. Sours, it was actually playing Primal Might, which is back in Standard because of Foundations. And Primal Might pumps your creature, right? +X+X. But then it's also a removal spell. Whereas Go Calper was playing removal spells in terms of hard-hitting questions and Hunter's talents. So I'd be interested to see like these two versions of this deck sort of like meld together to see which is the more dominant or better removal spells. Primal Might does let you attack through some things too. So it'd be interesting to see a sort of melding of these two lists to see where we end up with a full 75.
We need ram through back in Standard.
Oh,
ram through.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah, we have bite down, but we need ram through.
Yeah, ram through is legit.
Instant. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with ram through, it was originally from Ikoria, and it's a bite, but if the creature has trample, this spell tramples, and so if you have a large trampler, you can do quite a bit of damage with it, and it was an instant. So yeah, all good things. Yeah. No, so this is interesting because that the removal package being the primary difference, that is it does kind of pose a question of what is most meaningful. Honestly, I think Primal Might. I'm glad to see Primal Might represented because I think in green aggro decks that card is legit. Being able to remove the best blockers off the field while giving a significant pump. I've seen a number of games that are won because of Primal Might. Like the turn before the sweeper would have hit, and it can get pretty great. So I'm glad to see that represented. And yeah, no, I agree with everything you're saying here. And I think there is a mono green shell now. I think we have the pieces. And between Vivian and the spider, honestly, like just refilling the hand, the biggest thing. Like the sweeper's probably going to happen. What do you do after? Like how do you rebuild? And I think that's so clutch. And that's one of the things that green's been missing. And it looks like there's a couple of key pieces.
That spider.
Yeah.
That spider is so good. Like I like on my channel, whenever I'm live, I do have a thing where people can redeem channel points to play against me, and SARS and Go Calper numerous times throughout the week will redeem to play against me, and I usually play Golgari mid range, and they only play almost exclusively mono green. And it gets to a point where I've used so much removal, I'm pretty much out, and they have the spider on the field, and it just keeps refilling their hand over and over and over again. And I'm like, how do I deal with this?
Oh yeah. I mean, you just have to deny the death trigger in some way, Like if the creature is dying and not being exiled, you're gonna have a rough go of it. Or you just got to prioritize the spider first. That's the other thing. Spinner of Souls, it ends up in a situation similar to cards like Skrelv, where it can it makes your opponent's removal a lot less effective, and they just have to spend the first piece on it. And that is pulling removal still. Like it's still, that's still a good situation to be in. Because the first thing is going to hit the spinner, not whatever else is punching through for damage. So, or whatever, or any mana dorks you have lying around that are going to tee up your future turns. So, it's honestly, this card is just shockingly good. I think a lot of people are saying it's great, and I think it still might be underrated right now. Yeah.
I feel like in the current metagame where there's a bunch of like red aggro decks, like if you're in a green base deck with a secondary color, you're probably not playing it because you need a bigger toughness. But once the metagame shifts away from all these red aggro decks, and you don't have to worry about, there's this prowess creature I'm blocking. Oh, they got a pump spell or they got another spell, and now my spider's dead by blocking, and maybe it becomes more playable. But in mono green, you play it no matter what.
Right.
And but in if anybody is watching this and if you are looking to play Pioneer, I'm sorry, not Pioneer, standard RCQ season that's coming up, or standard Store Champs, if you actually look at the two monogreen decks or monogreen in general, for paper Magic, it's probably one of the most affordable decks you could buy right now in paper.
It's true.
It's
Yeah.
like under $100 almost, I believe.
I believe it. Well, it's a pretty, I mean, it's definitely mostly commons and uncommons. And cards like Llanowar Elves that are so impactful when we talk about how, amazing that is for the format, that has been reprinted like 24,000 times. Like it's, there's so many copies of Llanowar Elves out there. Like if you've been playing for a while, you probably have some in a shoebox in your closet right now, So, yeah,
Some
things like
version,
that.
some art,
Some version. And we're talking about a Hunter's Talent and hard-hitting question. Like these are great cards in those green lists, but that's the only place they're played. It's not like a Shelter of the Apocalypse or an Unholy Annex where, yeah, there's the one deck that can really take advantage, but there are plenty of others that can use it, So as a result, the price is going to stay low on those. So yeah, that's a really good shout. Yeah.
Speaking of Llanowar Elves, kind of on topic of standard, but not on like decks, but Llanowar Elves, the waifu art, the anime art.
The Lanu elves, as I like to call it. Yes.
Yeah. There's no non-foil version of it in paper, which is annoying. I only play non-foils unless it's a promo, and I want that art in non-foil, and I can't play with it because of that.
Which is a bummer. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful
got
that
one
because
right here in case you want to borrow it, Jaffer.
Is that a normal
pretty.
foil or is that the Surge one?
It's Japanese foil.
It's fancy.
In case
Is
you
there a
need one for your
difference?
Golgari deck.
Oh, I got my original play set of game day ones that I'm using.
At fair.
Oh, heck yeah.
No, open house.
Nice.
Yeah,
dig
like
it.
when it comes to foils, I personally don't like foils because like they can be considered marked cards in competitive play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But-
when they start curling, that can be a pretty huge problem.
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm a big fan of the 7th edition Llanowar Elves myself. This is one that I want to get a bunch of. It was the only time this art was used for Llanowar Elves. It was only 7th edition. There are 2 or 3 other arts that have been used a ton on various printings, but for some reason, there's this one art that was used for 7th edition, which was the first time I was introduced to the card, just by happenstance. And so I don't know. I have a fond association with that one. So
Wasn't that one also in Portal?
I don't think so. I could be wrong though.
For some reason, I'm remembering that art on with a different set symbol.
Could be. Let
I
me.
thought it was, I might be wrong. I'm probably wrong.
The current.
Yeah, I'm scrolling through Scryfall and I don't see it. I'm afraid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Carlo, what's your favorite Llanowar Elf art?
Yeah.
I mean, I would say the current art that's in Foundations, and that's only because back in the day, back in the day, whatever you want to consider back in the day. The last time this art Llanowar Elves was in Standard, I don't know if that was 9th edition, 10th edition, what have you. Probably 10th edition. Who knows?
I bet that's right. Yeah.
Unlike Jaffer, I love foil cards, and so one thing that I would do is try to collect foil play sets of cards. And I had an era where I was just big into like foreign language cards, like anything that wasn't English. I didn't care what it was, as long as my foil playset was the same art, same language, whatever. So I had foil Russian Llanowar Elves of this art, and it was super cool, super dark foils, and it was my jam. That's what I was playing back in the day.
Nice. I dig it. And for audio folks, the default art for on Foundations is the Kev Walker illustration that is clearly designed after kind of the very first Llanowar Elf like alpha art where it's just the side of the head of the elf, except you see the whole body and they're posing and all the rippling deltoids and whatnot. Because this elf works out, does not skip back day. But yeah.
And also, like Sneaky, look at the knife that it's got in its hand. Like
That's
That's
legit.
it looks like an assassin. Like it's coming after you.
It's a sword,
and
not a knife.
that's a full-on
large
sword, and that's also in the left hand, which they're holding back, which means the one that's off frame is the same size, if not bigger. So yeah. I dig that. Yeah.
Or it could actually be some kind of like officer maybe, or like I don't know, directing, just pointing like. that
It's
way.
possible.
Yeah.
I choose to believe that there's
Um,
a giant, not messing around sword in that hand, but maybe not.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's possible. Or they're leading with a buckler, which would also be actually really tactically sound, but not as cool looking.
I'm sure there's a
So,
full art somewhere online of that one, but if
Yeah.
you probably go look it up. But
probably, yeah.
speaking of foreign language cards, um, I wouldn't recommend pulling this one up on here, Ham. But
Oh,
if what I find is funny, so there was a pro tour. It was a Pioneer Pro Tour, I believe, that Misplaced Ginger was a part of, and he played against somebody that had French fatal pushes, and he freaked out. It was like, why didn't anybody tell me this is what French fatal push was? And then he like made a tweet about it, and it blew up. And the price of the card skyrocketed in the French printing because of that.
Wow.
that's, I'm not gonna lie, that's kind of amazing. All right. Yeah, no, we're not gonna repeat that, but yeah, it's incredible. If you're wondering, yeah, why is the French one so much worth so much? Yeah, just go check it out. Go read it. Yeah. All right. Yes, it means
Google.org.
you can probably fill in the blanks. All right. Oh my goodness. Love it. Oh. So yeah. But yeah, so one other thought that I had as far as the tournament goes, kind of before we move on to, the Pioneer come to Arena. One thing that I just want to say is thanks for the timing of this event, because we had the World Championship and the meta kind of was established more or less, or at least, although to be fair, I think there's still even a lot of questions about, how solid was it coming out of there. But then Foundations showed up and just rocked everything. And so I know, knowing RCQs are around the corner, it's kind of a question of, well, what is the best deck right now? What is viable? What is good? And we're still trying to figure that out, and we don't really have a lot of good data points. And without events like this, we have MTGO challenges and things, and that's helpful, but I don't know. It's nice to see tournament results and see what people are bringing, because there were some interesting ones. I was kind of very impressed with even a relatively small turnout. People got there. Yeah, the meta was represented, but some other people got weird. I also want to give a shout out to the Is It Hellraiser deck. That was a blast and did far better than I would have guessed. So if you're not familiar,
Yeah.
Capricious Hellraiser is one heck of a card. It's a 4/4 for 6, but it can cost 3 less. And when it enters the battlefield, you exile. It costs less if your graveyard has 9 or more cards in it. So if you have a super threshold, it's cheap. When it enters the battlefield, you exile 3 cards at random from your graveyard, and then you can cast a non-creature, non-land card from among them for free. Like, you copy it, and you just play the copy. And so it was leveraging some gigantic Chandras and the Blue Season, if I'm not mistaken, to just insane value in a way that, like, I don't know, I'm not a statistician, but like, that shouldn't work, right? But it did.
Yeah, the secret name for this deck is Dragon Casino, and that's simply because you try to spin Capricious Hellraiser into something, but the most fun part is you don't know what that something is always going to be. It could be, the Season of Weaving that bounces all your opponent's stuff and makes copies of the Hellraiser, and you go again, or it could be that it copies a Planeswalker that unfortunately got milled somehow or discarded. Most interestingly enough, so this deck existed 2 standards ago, and by that I mean in Bloomburrow standard. You didn't really see it much during Duskmourn standard. And that was because Season of Weaving came out in Bloomburrow, so obviously taking
Sure.
advantage of that card. But now this new deck, the person who played it today, apparently has like thousands of games logged with this particular deck. So if there's anybody that you don't want to be facing playing this deck, it's probably the person who has thousands of games in, right?
Oh, for
And
sure.
they were actually playing the new Chandra, Chandra Flame Shaper from Foundations. So for those of you listening, Chandra Flame Shaper is 5 and 2 red for 6 loyalty. You can +2 loyalty to add 3 red to your pool. Exile the top 3 cards of your library. Choose one. You may play that card this turn. You can +1 to make a token that's a copy of target creature you control, except it has haste, and it gets sacrificed at the end step. Or you can -4 and deal 8 damage divided among any number of target creatures and/or planeswalkers. So most of the time, this Chandra is +1ing and making a copy of Capricious Hellraiser, right?
Just
If you happen to hit it from a
spinning.
yard, it's great. You get another one, automatic haste. And this deck in particular plays cards like Bitter Triumph, right? To draw a discard, but also the ability to like give your creatures haste. So you want to keep making copies of the Capricious Hellraiser, give them all haste, and swing in, right? That's the purpose mostly of this deck. And also, interestingly enough, they were playing a copy of Kiora the Rising Tide, which is the new creature Kiora, which I've loved playing in the Dimir Zombify deck personally. It lets you draw 2, ditch 2, and then if you have Threshold, which means 7 or more cards in your yard,
Which
when
you
it
will.
attacks, you make an 8/8 legendary Kraken, right? Which is very good. It's very good, and I'm surprised that this deck is only playing one of it. I would not be surprised if it starts adding more copies of this Kiora, just to give you an alternate sort of win con.
It's
the fact
it's
that
a solid sideboard card too.
Mm-hmm.
Just like some of the Oculus decks are playing it in their sideboard, I believe, for just another threat. Or like somebody mentioned in my chat for like Graveyard Ape, but that doesn't make sense. I would imagine it'd be like maybe a one of in some main boards when you have so much graveyard stuff going on.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, this is one that I've played with a little bit recently in a couple of my brews, and she overperforms every time. I mean, it's kind of shocking how often that 8/8 octopus ends up popping out. Like, it's not hard to make that happen. But even if you don't get that, drawing 2, discarding 2, and then in many cases pulling a removal spell out of the opponent's hand, that's worth 3 mana. I'll take that, you know? Yeah. So yeah, this card overperforms. You know, it's quite good. if this isn't on your radar right now, especially if you like doing graveyard shenanigans, yeah, definitely keep an eye on this one.
Yeah,
give it a shot.
I've been very impressed about this Kiora. Like trying to jam it into a whole bunch of different decks. It's sweet value. Just all around the stats are just great. It's a 3/2 for 3 mana. It blocks a lot of things. So
yeah, can trade up in a lot of situations. And and when you attack, I mean, if you attack to get that trigger and she dies, okay. Like, it's not a big deal. And in the Oculus deck or something that's running Helping Hand to recommission, just go grab her back, do it again, get that ETB again. It's pretty amazing. Yeah. So gush, Kiora good.
Yeah.
All right. So awesome. But yeah, so anyway, I wanted to call that one out specifically because I was looking for something janky going into this that was gonna go hard, and this one definitely did. And yeah, when you have a deck like that, like, it's funny, the idea that that particular player had so many hours, and so many reps in, there's that age-old expression of play to your outs. But in order to play to your outs, you need to know what all of your outs are, and that just comes with repetition and practice. And yeah, I have a feeling there were some lines. I have a feeling there were some lines that they found. What's up?
I'm sorry to laugh, but when you said play to your outs, that remind me of us watching that one match of I think it was Cut the Top 8, right? It was the deck versus that we're talking about versus Domain. And like they were just spinning their wheels constantly over and over and over again, and there was no way for them to win, and they just kept bouncing everything off the board. Domain would reset, and it just
and at one point the Domain player was playing Urgent Necropsy and had to blow up one of their own Up the Beanstalks to not deck out from casting spells. That was wild. Because we were sitting there wondering, well, who's going to deck out first? Because the Izzet player can stay alive and just keep bouncing Domain stuff. And I'm like, well, Up the Beanstalk isn't a must. You have to draw a card.
Yep.
So if they keep casting spells, it's like somebody's going to deck out.
At that point, the Izzet player had about 13 cards, while Domain had about 18. But all the spells Domain's playing are like 5 and up.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and I've definitely, we've all seen that happen in those grindy games with Domain. I mean, that's why you see, random mill cards in sideboards half the time is just for that grindy game against Domain. Because if you can hit them with 1 mill at the end, they end up in a situation where they either can't reset or they draw out. That's just where you are. So that's interesting. But yeah, having a backup plan to blow up your own Up the Beanstalk is definitely a clever solution. I mean, you got to be creative. You got to understand how everything
Mhm.
clicks together, and that's a great play. Yeah, I dig it.
Yeah, and speaking of milling, we did have a player, Craven Arts, who played a Demir Demons deck today, that
Mhm.
top aided, and obviously one of the win conditions is milling, right? And
Yep.
by Demir Demons, I'm not talking about like Bloodletter of Akhlazat. I'm talking about Doomsday Excruciator, the 6 pip black demon that says when it enters, each player will mill until they have 6 cards left in their deck.
Mhm.
And then you end up winning with Jace the Perfected Mind. So you minus X,
Mm-hmm.
you make your opponent mill X amount of cards, times 3, and they lose.
It was similar to one of the world's list, but this one was built to be more of a control deck. There was
Yeah,
3 demon excruciators, and there was no other creatures in the main
yeah.
board.
Hmm.
It was just a Demir control deck, utilizing a bunch of removal spells like Go for the Throw, even Shoot the Sheriff, drawing cards with like Quick Study, trying to get down to playing your combo to win the game. Um, and so it reminds me a lot of like the old Demir, like Inverter of Truth, Thassa's Oracle
Mm.
decks, if you remember. Before that ended up getting banned out of Pioneer.
Ah, yes.
Who would have thought Thassa's Oracle being a ridiculous card? But
Mhm.
It's crazy.
who knows?
Yeah.
I know. R.I.P. Inverter of Truth. It paid for
There,
Thassa's Oracle's sins. Amazing.
out of all of the
Oh.
decks that were in the tournament, were there any deck lists that both of you saw that you wish performed better?
Hmm.
Ooh. The one that comes to my mind immediately is elves. There was one player who was on Golgari
Yeah.
elves, and Foundations brought with it a huge elf package. Like they clearly decided that we want elves to be, a playable in standard. We want it. So we have Elvish
Yeah.
Archdruid. There's Dwynen's Elite. Like the amount of material that deck got, like they're clearly trying to
Mhm.
push it. Which for a new player product, core set style, that makes good sense, right? Because elves are a
Mhm.
key piece of the game. So okay, great. And I was really it was kind of disheartening to watch even when the elf deck popped off and really did what would have been one of the most explosive game defining, curve outs. It still was just a little too slow compared to some of the other creatures and threats that other folks were
Yeah.
throwing, and we were mentioning the benefits of a lot of those green cards
Mhm.
in refilling the hand. Yeah, the elf deck didn't really have any of that, unfortunately. And so they would get to a point where they had a ton of mana and it just sort of they didn't have anything to spend it on.
Yeah.
And that was a shame. It wasn't the player's fault. It was just how it lined up in the meta. And I believe that their list was a good elf list. It's just,
Mhm.
I don't, as good as an elf list as we could get. It just, yeah, it just didn't quite come together. Yeah.
How about you, Carlo?
I mean, I really liked Lord Kaiju was playing an Orzhov list that featured Rotten Mouth Viper. I like
Mm,
that folks are still trying that strategy. Their deck was a little bit different. I mean, they were instead of playing like Braids, which I've seen in the past, they were playing Helpful Hunter from Foundations. That's the cat that costs 2 mana.
yeah.
Um, one in a white, 1/1. When it ETBs, you draw a card.
Mhm.
And so they were more worried about picking stuff up with the Nurturing Pixie, which is when it ETBs, you can return a non-land permanent to your hand, and then you get a
Mm-hmm.
counter on it, right? Um, and so they were taking advantage of that and playing cards like Tithing Blade and Spring-Loaded Soul Blades and Carrot Cake. So developing tokens on the board, being able to pick up removal spells, which was nice, and then sacrificing some stuff to Rotten Mouth Viper. Um, I thought it was a pretty cool deck, going that different route, focusing on the tokens a little bit more. And plus, we got to see like Curse of the Stash Skeleton, and I love that
Mhm.
card. Um, I think if we can somehow like improve that deck a little bit by playing not only that card but Corpse of the Lost, that allows you to make more skeletons and give your skeletons
Mhm.
haste and stuff like that. I think
Okay.
those are 2 amazing cards. So it's basically you're putting tokens into play, and if they
Mhm.
kill the one token from Case of the Stash Skeleton, you can demonic tutor.
Yeah.
Uh, if they curse of the
Case
Corpse of
of
the
the stash
Lost
skeleton.
is something that you get to
Corpse of the
keep
Lost.
picking
Yeah.
up. And so you can pick it up and replay it and get more skeletons without having to have like your creatures destroyed all the time.
Mhm.
Which is super nice. And if you want to sack any of those tokens to the Rotten Mouth Viper, sounds great to me.
Go for it.
Um,
Yeah.
so I think that maybe a little bit of improvement there. I really like the deck the way it was. How Lord Kaishu was playing. I think they ran into like a little bit of bad luck of getting like DC'd from Marina a little bit
Mhm.
today. But I'd be interesting to see how to make improvements upon that deck and taking it for a spin again.
That's a really
Yeah,
good shout. Yeah.
I remember seeing his list and them play, and I liked what they were doing, but I felt like I'm not a big fan of Viper in standard,
Hmm.
because like you have to build so much into it. It's a
Right.
solid card on like turn 4 or 5, or
Hmm.
even the turn turn or how much it costs, 6 mana. It's
Hmm.
just a really good ability. But building solely just into that, I'm not a big fan of. I was like curious and of like of the player names in the tournament, and I was just like scrolling, and I saw a friend and viewer of mine. I actually got to meet at DC at the RC in DC. They traveled from Canada to play in the US RC to
Wow.
Scrubbly. To Scrubbly is that's their online name. They brew a lot, and they built a Golgari deck that was playing that exquisite blood combo.
Yep.
They I
Oh yeah.
believe they went 1-2 drop, but it still looked pretty cool. Like they were playing like Land Royals, Glissa, Outcast Trailblazer, the new Vampire,
Mm.
and the Black Glimmer. And they
Yep.
had Smuggler Surprise in it too, and the on the Holy Annex. So I liked where they were going with it. It looked really cool.
Hmm.
I personally kind of want to try playing something like that now. I just wasn't a fan of like they're playing Glimpse the core inside of this as well,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
it
Sure.
looked really cool. I feel like maybe the deck can be a thing without Glimpse the core and Smuggler Surprise, just like a solid mid range package maybe with it.
Hmm.
Um, but that was a deck I was hoping that would have done well enough to make top 8.
Yeah, I can definitely appreciate that. I mean, Smuggler's Surprise alongside a 2-card creature combo that not quite wins on the spot, but just about, is an
Mhm.
interesting idea. Yeah, Glimpse the Core is one of those that setting up, if you can get it on at the right time when you're trying to ramp up into 5 or 6 mana for something like that, it's great. But if you top deck it late in the game, oof, it's rough. So,
Mhm.
well, traditional ramp spell problems, you know. So,
Yeah.
but that's
Hmm.
interesting. Yeah, and I definitely agree. It would be fun to see that pop off. But it's funny because I think both of those um, breakdowns, I think, really speak to a key element that I know that I need to focus on in my deck builds, and that's not going too all in. You know, because right now, both of those ideas, you have this crazy combo, or you have this, you know, strong finisher in Rottenmouth Viper, where if those are the only things that you've got, not that that's necessarily the case with these decks, but you know, when you're building a deck, if you're all in on getting like the Rottenmouth Viper is one that I've seen a lot of people do, where like they have 16 different ways to get 5 permanents down by turn 3. And it's like, okay, that's great. But you're throwing out a Rottenmouth Viper before your opponent has used any of their kill spells. So, like, you know, is that really where you want to be? It ends up just not quite lining up very well. Because the Viper itself, you know, it's a decent finisher, and yeah, it's a good value snowball. You want to get it going fast, but you need to have something else. You need to diversify your threats in order for it to be good. And adding the skeleton aggro package in the early game, so that presents a whole threat and a whole situation that the opponent needs to deal with. And if they manage to deal with that, oh, by the way, I've got this big snake now that you're no low on resources. That's pretty slick. That's a cool idea. And with the with the Bloodthirsty Conqueror Enduring Tenacity combo, throwing that into a mid-range deck where it's a cool thing if you get it, but if you don't, you're fine, is probably the way to go.
Mm.
Which I know I've seen other folks do something similar to that. I mean, there are so many ways to build Golgari mid-range right now,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's kind of nuts. That's one thing that I've noticed is that particular deck is just spoiled for choice. I mean, you know, the right now the black threats, like it's super deep. You know, like right now, as far as the color balance is concerned, Black's bench is nuts. Like some of the cards that don't quite make the cut are still fantastic cards. So yeah, I don't know. You
Yeah.
can build that in so many different ways. And yeah, the Smuggler Surprise route is an interesting one, but yeah, I don't know if it was optimal. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll tell you what I was surprised not to see somebody play today was the Zur Overlords deck that you might want to
Oh
call
yeah.
domain, but most lists aren't even playing Atraxa. Literally playing like somewhere between 10 to 12 different overlords, not different, but overlords. And taking advantage of Zur Eternal Schemer. And it's interesting because, they did just publish the results a little while ago of the standard showcase on Magic Online. And so I'm talking about a tournament that had like 350 people. And there were 2 Zur decks that top aided this tournament. In particular, the one that came in second place was playing 10 Overlords. 3 Overlord of the Flood
Wow.
Pits, 4 Overlord of the Hauntwoods, and 3 Overlord of the Mistmoors. And we're talking about a deck that is just literally playing Zur and animating all of your enchantments. And attacking and gaining incredible amounts of life. If you don't deal with Zur, you probably lose. And not to mention, the same deck gets to play the Up the Beanstalk into Overlord of the Hauntwoods, which draws you a card and gets you a life. You don't even got to play Zur till later. You just like threaten them with the Overlords. And I find it interesting is we talked about this right when we were talking about Duskmourn Standard. We talked about it here. Like, why aren't people just playing Overlords and like blink effects and making them not creatures? And this new deck is doing that. It's not only playing Zur, but it's playing Scroll Shift from March of the Machines. And that blinks out this 3-mana enchantment you just played the next turn, and it lets it re-enter, ramps you, and you get a 6/5, and you draw a card. On top of that, so like these are incredible sets of cards, and I know we mentioned this today during the tournament, and I'll keep saying it. It was some pro, I don't remember which pro, but some pro said if you can play Pioneer and Standard, you should be doing it because the cards are just that powerful, and it makes you think back to the Enigmatic Incarnation decks during RCDC, where people were doing almost exactly this, but with 80 cards, right? And like fetching out one enchantment to go hit another one because the overlords are just that powerful. And a lot of them are very expensive in order to like buy. So there's a reason for that because the cards are very good.
So Carlo,
Yeah.
how do I play my Cauldron Familiars and Mayhem Devils in Standard?
Well, you see, there's a card called 9 Lives Familiar, which is kind of like it's a cat. Yeah, I know. It's just there are sack decks, and Jaffer, you would probably enjoy. There's like a red-black sacrifice deck right now that's out there, but you don't like Rotten Mouth Viper. But it is a red-black sack deck that exists in the format. It's just not great.
Yeah.
It's not great. It's playable.
Yeah, I played it for a deck. Somebody paid me to play it for a deck dono. With the one with it's like enchantment. It's enchantment sacrifice with
the
Demonic Pact
with Disturbing Mirth and Hopeless Nightmare. Yeah.
It's not good.
I don't know, man. I have a version of this that's actually I have a version of that leverages that shell into the Demonic Pact Harmless Offering finisher, and I think that's decent. Like every time I play it, I'm like, this should not be working as well as it does, but somehow it does. So I don't know. I think there's something there. There is a 75 to be found, but I can appreciate that maybe we don't have it yet.
I feel like in the right hands, and if you're playing against people that are not used to playing against it, it probably does decently well. There is another streamer, her name is Meowdick, or Meow, and she's been in like top 50, top 20, top 10 Mythic this whole entire season, and she played that deck, and she's kind of memeing on people when she posts about it on Twitter and stuff, and she goes like 5-0 with the deck, and she's like, I don't know how this deck is winning, like she says on stream, I don't know how this is winning. It shouldn't be. And then she memes in their Twitter posts about it, like this deck is cracked or something like that. And just to get the people to try to play it.
Yeah.
As
you should.
Absolutely.
I mean, again, this is the beautiful thing about Standard is that you can just play whatever the hell you want. There is a clear difference though about playing Standard on Arena, right, and climbing the ladder versus like trying to take your decks to like a Magic Online challenge or a more competitive format. And this isn't a knock on. Listen, we all stream Arena here. It's our game, right? And this isn't a knock on somebody playing a different client, whether you're playing Magic Online, because we play Magic Online too.
We're playing Magic here. I thought this was a Pokemon group.
Oh man,
I
I got
was
some
here for
flesh and blood
Exodia, the
takes.
Forbidden One in particular, but
Oh, okay.
you know. Uh,
Dang.
but what I mean by that is Arena rewards folks for playing like time wise, right?
Mhm.
You can climb the
Mhm.
Mythic every season if you play often enough,
Mhm.
right? Um, whereas the more competitiveness comes from, whether it be maybe your standard metagame challenge or your what went on the Arena play-in qualifier, right? Best of 3. Like you are playing more competitively. There is an end goal. Whether you can win some amount of prize or make it to the arena championships or something like that. Those tend to be more competitive than the ladder does, right?
Mhm.
I can take whatever I want to the ladder and play it, and that's the beauty of standard, showing its diversity. But if I want to play the more competitive decks, and test for RCQs, the arena ladder will get you the ability to play with your deck, but it's not the same as like testing in a tournament type of setting. You know what I mean?
Oh, for
Um,
sure.
so we could play all of these different decks, but at the end of the day, I would encourage y'all, even if you are just arena only players, look to what Magic Online is showing you, because that is a more
I
direct representation on what you will see at your RCQs.
I have a little bit of a counterpoint to that.
Sure.
Um, that yes, do what Carlos says, but just know a lot of the Magic Online grinders, they don't innovate. They just rinse and repeat the
Mm.
same decks over and
Yep.
over again without innovating. And it's usually the content creators on Magic Online that are innovating.
Yep.
Sure.
Like not to talk bad about not I'm not trying to talk bad about anybody. It's just that's kind of the real thing of it. Like I had a conversation with some other content creators about this, and that's something that we've noticed a lot of the time.
Hmm. Well, it's
Yeah.
interesting because I guess that would also kind of make sense though, because if a lot of those grinders are playing formats like Modern, for example, that is, I mean, okay, Modern Horizons have kind of changed this dynamic, but for the most part, there's a steady core group of decks that have been the stable, meta for years, like years upon years. And
Yeah.
is your time better spent trying to find some crazy new tech, or simply is your time better
Yeah.
spent learning how to play against them and just maximize those matchups?
Mm-hmm.
So I can understand why the priority wouldn't necessarily be on innovation for a lot of people with that mindset. Makes sense.
Yeah.
But at the same time, maybe they're leaving money on the table. I mean, Death's Shadow is a classic example of one where that entire deck was in the format for years before anybody realized, oh, this is good, guys. Maybe we should use
Yeah.
this. Um,
It's true.
and so yeah, brewers out there, we appreciate you. We salute you. Keep trying what you're trying and keep making it happen. Yeah.
Speaking of brewers and brewing
Yes.
magic, is this a good point to move on to the next topic, or
I think
do we have
so.
more standard stuff to talk about?
I can talk about standard for days without talking,
Yeah.
and I do, twitch.tv/HamHocks42. But yes, I think this is a great time to make a little to make a pivot. So Pioneer Masters is coming out, guys. It's happening. And I know we are all incredibly excited about this. Even if the hall in Vegas was not, we certainly are. I sustain that a lot of the arena players who were really stoked about it, who were very excited, were in their own homes in pajama pants. So they weren't actually there in the hall, which makes sense.
True.
But I trust that the raucous cheers in living rooms across the world was very real. So, but yeah, so Pioneer Masters is coming, which is a new set that's going to be dropping on Arena. Because I know you all have an abundance of gold gems and wild cards. There's nothing recently that you would have been spending those on, and so it's going to be dropping, and it's going to introduce a ton of cards that are popular within the Pioneer metagame that are not currently available on Arena. The one that they like the one that they previewed initially was Hidden Strings. Is a card
Yeah.
that is one that's pretty darn important that we haven't had. But I believe they confirmed that there will be, was it 300, 400 cards? Like, it's a ton.
Almost 400. It's like 396 or something like that.
The big set.
But to be clear of what HamHock said,
Yeah.
he did say Pioneer metagame. This is they're bringing the Pioneer tournament metagame to Arena, not your local F&M metagame. So your janky cards that you want to play with on Arena from Pioneer that you play at your local store, you're probably not going to get those. But
Do you
Yeah.
mean I won't get War Leader's Helix on Arena?
I mean, we can't confirm, but they did
It's in
say
Dragon's Maze though.
Dragon's Maze, a set that I'm sure will be very well represented.
it
you know,
is almost 400 cards that is draftable. So like I'm assuming they are going to bring some cards onto Arena that like a lot of the Pioneer players are going to be like, why the heck is this on here? This makes no sense.
Yeah.
and weird janky brewers are gonna look at it and be like, "Ooh, what can I do with this?" And yeah, they did confirm that so it's a draftable set. So then you're gonna need cards like War Leader's Helix, 4 damage to any target you gain 4 life, instant speed for 4. Constructed, that isn't viable at all. But as a limited piece of removal, that might actually line up well depending on what other cards are in that set. So like you jest, but maybe it might be in there. But just from the draft perspective, but they did confirm that there were some more kind of build around cards that aren't necessarily represented in the meta that will be included. So I know if you're like me and you're always looking for the next fun thing to brew with and next weird tech, whether or not it works, you just want to try it. I know that's something I do all the time, and I know this community is, I mean, the MagicJank podcast, we love the jank around here, so this doesn't give you all of the jank dating back to Return to Ravnica. So if there's a Pioneer legal card that you want for one of your brawl decks, keep an eye on the spoilers. Maybe it'll be here, but there's a decent chance it's not. Just be aware. Yeah.
What I hope actually comes to Arena through Pioneer Masters better be Bring to Light. Because we have been missing that card for so long, and I haven't been able to play my 5-color dragons because Arena didn't want to give me Bring to Light.
Dragon.
So my no, multiple dragons I can play, Jaffer. I can play Niv Mizzet Reborn and Niv Mizzet Supreme in the same Bring to Light deck.
Oh, let's go.
Yeah, I mean, what else would you want to do with Bring to Light besides put a 5-color dragon in play and maybe draw 5 cards? It's almost as good as Atraxa.
Yeah.
What? I'm serious. It's almost as good. It's almost as good as Atraxa. And you can also play Omnath Locus of Creation in the same deck if you want. But we haven't been able to find out so far because we haven't been able. And listen, Niv Mizzet used to be very serious term. Used to be a part of the serious Pioneer metagame, and you weren't able to play that deck at all on Arena if you were trying to test it via Explorer.
Right.
But
you had to play Niv to Lightless.
Yeah,
right,
and it was worse.
Well, but funnily enough, those decks were still
worse.
They were still decent, but they were nowhere near as good. Yeah, exactly.
They were decent against all the mid-range decks because, like, what the hell? What the heck does mid-range do against 5-color piles of cards?
Nothing. They lose, and you get to play 80 cards. It's another plus. I mean, listen, I have been known to play plenty of an 80-card pile when it comes to have played Pioneer. And it is glorious every time. Listen, let me just say one thing. In case you're looking for something new that this Niv Mizzet deck is playing from Foundations, believe it or not, I've seen many a list playing Elenda, Saint of Dusk.
That card is really good.
It's very good. I don't know why it's trying to include this card, though. And for those of you who don't know at home, Elenda, Saint of Dusk is a 4-mana, 4/4 lifelink hexproof from instance. GG, go for the throat.
That's legit.
As long as your life total is greater than your starting life total, it gets +1/+1 in Menace, and then +5/+5, as long as your life total is at least 10 greater than your starting life total. And you're talking about a deck that is gaining a bunch of life via Omnath Locus of Creation. play Fabled Passage, gain 4. Sack it the next turn, put another land into play, gain 4. You're talking about a 10/10 lifelink hexproof an instance, cost 4 mana that you can grab off of your Niv Mizzet.
Probably playing the card because almost all the removal in every format is instant speed.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny because you look at this, and it's like, oh, she's a 4-drop, dies to Fatal Push. Oh wait,
Wait.
nope, just kidding. Yeah. No, that Hexproof from
Uh,
Instance, I'm sure it does a lot of heavy lifting. Yeah, good stuff.
Now, when it comes to us getting Pioneer Masters, I do want to say I am Pioneer's my favorite format, completely out of all the formats. So I am super stoked about it, and I was still a little like dumbfounded, somewhat or surprised that we actually are getting Pioneer Masters after being promised it like 3 or 4 times and it getting pushed back almost every single time.
Sure.
I'm still like somewhat expecting it to all of a sudden be like a week right before, like, oh, sorry guys, you got to wait 2 more months.
Yeah, because I feel
I
like this
doubt
was
it.
on the.
Yeah.
I feel like the first time this came up, it was on the roadmap like 2 years ago, and we've been just
Yeah.
And there was a good year before that where we were saying, well, why don't we have Pioneer? So
like,
yeah,
it didn't make sense.
And it was so
yeah,
funny because I think last time you asked the question, it was like I think the answers we were getting is you need to wait until MagicCon Las Vegas. And so
Yep.
here HamHocks and I are in front of the Foundations panel at Vegas, and I'm sitting
Yep.
here live streaming it, and I'm like, oh, this is why we had to wait until Vegas, because they were just gonna make the announcement here, and here
Yep.
HamHocks is in the background. There wasn't a whole bunch of like cheers, but bet your ass that HamHocks is in the back saying, like, going woo woo, like,
Oh, yeah.
ready for Pioneer Masters, and everybody's
Can't
looking
wait.
back at HamHocks like,
What? Like, no, this is great, guys. Trust me. Like,
listen, there was only one, and this isn't a knock on Pioneer. Listen, Pioneer is great, but there was only one less cheerful of a crowd, and that was when they revealed that the dual land cycle, the rare dual land cycle in Foundations, was the temples. That got absolutely no cheer at all, like no reaction from the crowd. The second most being that Pioneer Masters was coming to Arena. But the majority of the crowd that was there obviously clearly cared about Standard, so whatever was happening there, or they were ready to see the Final Fantasy reveal, because that was
that one.
the loudest cheer in the room.
That one,
especially because it came with a really
imagine.
hot fire trailer.
that preview trailer. Yeah, people were very, very stoked on that one. Although actually, I think the biggest cheer was actually the return to MSRP. That one, holy cow! Yeah, when they dropped that place just blew up. Which I was surprised by. Like, I understand that the return to a manufacturer's suggested retail price is a valuable thing for any distributor at this scale. I get that. I had no idea that the Magic community was that plugged into those kinds of things. It's like, oh, we got a lot of savvy consumers in the audience today. All right. Which was,
So, kind of going back to the Pioneer and stuff. I'm sorry.
No, please. Like, no, the floor is yours, good sir. Yeah.
So for those are watching or listening or whatever, a couple things about Pioneer Masters. A lot of people are still asking this every time in my streams. Is Pioneer Masters going to come out in paper? No, unfortunately not.
No,
it is Arena digital only form set. It would be amazing if we ever got like a Pioneer Master set to get good reprints for more accessibility.
Well, and they've curated a draft environment now, so I mean they have the list. I mean I understand it's not just as easy as pressing print. Like, I get that distributing, a Magic set's a big deal, but
realistically, it probably wouldn't be
not
beneficial
we're probably
financially for Wizards. But so it's digital only. As far as we're aware, they're not doing any special thing for this set. Like, they're not gonna, since we're having an abundance of more of sets being released more frequently now. I don't believe there's going to be anything to make things cheaper or something like that. People have been asking about that in my chat. I don't work for Wizards. I'm not going to know this. We're just streamers. We just play the game to make.
Yeah, we're just like, we try to butter up Wizards and get information where we can, but we don't. Most of the time, we don't have any kind of advanced knowledge that you don't already have. Yep.
The things that we can tell you though, that we do know of stuff about, is there is a Pioneer Masters streamer event happening on December 5th, and all three of us are in it, and along with a bunch of other cool people. There's going to be a Pioneer or it's going to turn into their Explorer's going to turn into Pioneer, the name. So there's going to be a Pioneer best of 1 queue. There's direct challenges if anybody wanted to get best of 3 in, and there's going to be draft and sealed. So that's all going to be on December 5th, going into the 6th, and I know I'll be streaming it for sure. I'll probably be up way too late playing that because it's my favorite format. Like,
Jaffer may or may not run into me very late at night with 80 card Yorion piles.
And then when you're done with that, running into me trying to force some kind of reanimator shenanigans as I'm starting early in the morning. Yeah.
The question though is, how many people are going to run into folks untapping their Lotus fields and tapping them and making mana and tapping them again and untapping them?
How many
and casting ultimatums and stuff like this?
I think the majority, like 90% of people, except for Alio Eldrazi, are going to time out playing that deck.
Yeah, facts.
I believe it.
Because like, the timer on Arena isn't designed for a combo like that. Like, people almost run out of time on Moto playing that deck.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a chess clock, while in Arena we don't have a chess clock.
Yeah.
Right.
But also on the topic of Pioneer Masters, we do know some of the other cards that are coming in. If you look at the announcement screenshot, you do like the cards are shadowed out beneath like for the gameplay table. You do see the flip planeswalkers. Well, Jay's Wrench Prodigy was confirmed, but you do see the Nissa and you do see Liliana. So it's assumed we're getting all 5 of them.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, in fact, on the promo art, and we can share this because this is going to be coming out, right? On the promo art, Liliana is on there. So you will see a lot of that coming in the future. So I'm excited for the Flipwalkers because, you know, I played myself many a Jace Vryn's Prodigy, many a Liliana, and so even though those cards aren't... Jace is probably the most played, right, in Pioneer if it sees any play.
Gideon or Kithian.
Oh, Gideon, yeah. Kithian is in the Soldiers deck or the Humans deck. That is right, because it flips. It cares about combat. It's a 1-drop. So I mean,
yeah.
If you're gonna play a 1-drop in Pioneer, it's got to be this one.
I played in Esper Legends. I took the standard deck and put Mox Opal and other cards in it to make it playable, and I almost won an RSQ with it.
Sweet.
But
yeah,
I'm excited for this whole thing. My only complaint right now is I understand why, but it's gonna make it a little bit harder. In the rules for this streamer event, they do have a rule asking us to play decks with new to Arena cards. I understand, but like that's gonna make it a little harder. Like, does that mean can I play this deck with 1 copy of this 1 card that I needed all this time? That's finally on Arena. Can I play my Rakdos deck with Urborg now and I'm good?
Yeah.
Fair question. Yeah, I would imagine that's probably not what they're looking for. But
I know.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, but it's still a big deal that's going to be there. You know. Yeah. So that might be for the day after they shut down. Yeah, that might be the release day. You know, jam. Yeah. Interesting. So,
but listen, hey, y'all, if you've never played Pioneer before, you literally could take a good portion of what's good in Standard right now and literally come up with a deck. Whether that's like the Rakdos or Gruul Prowess decks. Shocker, they play Heartfire Hero and they try flinging really big mice at your face. That hasn't gone away in that format at all.
The Golgari Demons deck in Standard? Remove the green and add some red, and you can play that with Fable the Mirror Breaker.
Done.
You basically have eight copies of Fable then.
Yeah. Or if you really want, you can play white and play cards like Vanishing Verse, and some Biza and Blood Baron of Vitscopa. For
Why
all
play
you,
that?
Why not?
Because you have Elenda now.
You do have Elenda, but don't you like playing vampires from Dragon's Maze, Jaffer? Like.
Maybe when we had Sorin legal.
You know what? I'm feeling like the real takeaway, right? The real takeaway here, I'm thinking, is that they really just need to do Dragon's Maze remastered. I think that's really what we need. So maybe that's not like we just need all of Dragon's Maze.
Maze's End, baby.
Are you paying me to play with this?
Maze's End is back in standard too, by the way.
It
Just in case
is,
anybody
yes,
needs to know.
and it actually it's kind of fun.
In case you enjoyed Dragon's Maze, you can do it in standard for at least the next 5 years.
One last thing about Pioneer for me. For all of you that are watching or listening, if you enjoy playing Pioneer, and if you are looking for some competitive outlet to play Pioneer in some way, and you're sad about the RCQ schedule for next year, and if you play on Arena, the tournament we talked about earlier, at the start of this, the one I hosted, I am hosting another one 2 weeks after the Pioneer Masters release. It is called Jaffer's Pioneer Masters Mosh Pit. That will be happening on December 21st. It's free to play, and there'll be coverage and commentary on it. I know HamHocks will be in it. Carlo's considering playing instead of doing commentary. He wants to play
But
some
he'll be
Yorions
there.
and 80 card piles, but he'll be
in some
there.
capacity.
I'll be here. Yeah.
But it'll be
Who
a fun
knows?
time.
I might O2 drop and end up having to commentate like it normally happens.
Yeah. So you're going to be competing. So
Nice.
you're definitely going to be available for the top 8, right? That's
Yeah, for sure.
Oh my goodness. So Jaffer, I have a question for you because I have a feeling I'm not the only person in this situation. So for anybody out there who doesn't currently play Pioneer but would like to get involved, what are some decks that we should keep an eye out for? What are some strategies that aren't currently in Explorer, for example, that maybe we should be aware of that this is going to bring? If you got anything
for
to
the
keep an eye on?
most part, the majority of Pioneer decks that are like of the decks you see that are being played in the Pioneer metagame, the majority of them are already on Arena. It's just Lotus Field isn't. There is in some capacity, but it is a very convoluted way to play it. But I don't even try playing it if you find it. Just wait for the rest of the cards.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, like there are some mono black decks out there that play a lot of colorless lands that play Urborg, so like that you'll get. If we get Urborg, I'm assuming we are. It's not gonna make it. That won't make any sense if we don't. But
Sure.
But yeah, pretty much we have everything that we need. It's just this is bringing us like the probably the couple cards that we're missing. Like realistically, to get us to the get us the cards that we need for the metagame that we usually see, it's probably like around 30 to 30, 40, 50 cards, something like that.
Okay.
So it's really that is a lot, but it's not much at the same time.
Yeah.
Because those are a lot of those cards are kind of fringe cards that are like sideboard cards or something.
Yeah.
Like Chain to the Rocks is one of those, and some people have replaced that with Portable Hole on Arena. And there's some other things too. I just honestly I can't think of them off the top of my head. I know.
No, it's
Fire
okay. I
Shoes
put you on the
came
spot
out.
there. Yeah.
It's okay. Fire Shoes, I know for the last Pioneer RC, I think he made like a whole list of cards that we need added to Arena to make sure that we're actually caught up to the metagame, or somebody else made a list. It's somewhere out there.
Okay.
But overall, I can't wait. I do hope we actually get the true like tournament meta game completed. I'm assuming we are. If we I don't know.
There's no way they miss something with this release, right?
Oh yeah, sure. They won't miss anything.
There's no way they won't have to have a supplemental anthology come out afterwards when War Leaders Helix breaks into Pioneer and they forgot to put it into anthology. No, I'm just joking.
Well, but it's funny you say that though, because who knows? Like Aether Drift might introduce some crazy, just insane combo that all of a sudden does open up something from the past it will become meta that wasn't part of this. That's very likely to happen.
To be fair on what you're saying there, if you look at Pioneer for every standard set release except for Foundations, I believe, as of right now, there's been at least one new deck that popped out into the format every single standard release, or an old deck that just got new tools and then it shot from tier 3 all the way to tier 1. Like if you look at for example, Sacrifice, Rakdos Sacrifice turned into Jund Sacrifice during Bloomburrow, and it was fine for a bit, and then we got Igra, and it's just like, okay, you have an I win the game combo now.
That makes a pretty big difference.
Well, Rakdos Aggro got the mice. They
Yep.
just turn into like just hyper aggressive prowess. I fling my mouse at your face.
Well, yeah, there's that line with it. I think that quote was from, I want to say Frank Karsten, but yeah, when you can play a Pioneer deck in Standard, it's like, well, you can also play it in Pioneer. Fun fact.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
What actually there's one last thing I do want to say about Pioneer.
yeah.
Kind of linked to the competitive schedule. A lot of people in my chat, like because a lot of people know I like Pioneer and they keep coming in my chat and they're still complaining about this to now, and I feel for you guys, but people are saying like, how come we're getting Pioneer? How come we're not having a Pioneer RCQ season when we're getting Pioneer Masters on Arena finally? People, you got to remember that the Arena team isn't the competitive play team.
Mm-hmm.
Those are two different teams within Wizards of the Coast, and they probably don't communicate to make sure their schedules line up. They are
Yeah.
probably off in their own bubble or world, working on their own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and
But
it's just like, yeah, it's similar to how the Battle for Baldur's Gate came out a year before the video game that it was tied into. It's just the same. It just didn't line up because if Pioneer Masters had come out this time last year, going into this year, I mean, that would have been significantly better, right? And
Yeah.
maybe it was originally planned that way, and just things got delayed. So here we are. Yeah.
there's a bunch of stuff we just don't know overall, but like it is kind of tiring hearing a bunch of negativity about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, for
To be
sure.
honest.
Yeah, and for folks like if you are like, I don't know, I guess the proper word is hesitant about like jumping into the format. Whether that be because of the Premier Play schedule, nixing it from RCQ seasons for the next year or not, or you're just looking for something different to play on Arena. Honestly, if you've been collecting a lot of Standard on Arena, you aren't far off by a lot of really competitive Pioneer decks that you can play. Um, you know, one of the examples of that are the Zur deck. So we just mentioned the Zur deck in
Yep.
Standard and the Overlords. There are versions of that deck that don't play Enigmatic Incarnation, and it's just Zur plus Overlords. And they've been doing really well. And they work the same way as it does in Standard, except instead of Scroll Shift, you get to play Flicker of Fate, which is from Theros, and it says 2 mana, exile target creature or enchantment, and return it to the battlefield under its owner's control.
Strictly better. Let's go.
And you get to play better removal spells like Fatal Push. You know, aside from that, the only real thing you need are lands, and you probably already have the lands from the last Standard rotation, whether they are tri lands from New Capenna, or if you were playing during Ikoria, you might have some of those, and if you don't, maybe you got to craft a couple lands.
If
But
you've been
honestly,
playing
the rest of it's
Historic for a
Standard
while
legal.
before, if you're playing Historic for a while before like Explorer became a thing or before Timeless became a thing, you probably have your mana bases for the most part if you've been keeping up with Standard also.
Mm-hmm.
It-
Yeah.
it, like,
Yeah. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I think those are all good call outs and good shouts. I know for me, one thing that I've done as a brewer, I've definitely looked into formats like this to find old archetypes from Standards past and like dust them off. Like right now one of my go-tos when I do play Explorer, which isn't that often these days, but like I have a Lucky Clover adventure deck that I'll bust out from time to time just to take me back, you know? And I also have a Fires of Invention, you know? Some of that stuff from that time in Standard that I really enjoyed. Explorer's a great opportunity. So if you were playing Standard at any of those times and there was an archetype that you enjoyed, it probably has some new tools that you didn't have before. You know, like let me tell you what, that the Fires of Invention deck running Ilhard the Razeborn, all that nonsense that I love from back in the day. Yeah, it works a lot better with a Karuga companion and Fable of the Mirror Breaker in there. You know, so you're like,
Sure
yeah, I didn't
does.
have those when I first ran it, but yeah, things like that can be pretty cool, and it's a cool opportunity, even if you don't have a lot of these cards that we're talking about to play the meta specifically. You can dust off some older ideas, and who knows, maybe this Pioneer Masters will bring in some elements that can help kind of shore up some gaps in those decks and make them a little more competitive. So, yeah.
To add on to what HamHocks said, if you're gonna plan on playing a red deck that's not aggro, it's more mid-rangey, make sure you have Fable Mirror Breaker, and you're probably set now.
4 of just go.
Yeah.
Like if
To
there's
be
a
honest,
good, yeah,
I don't know how that card's not banned in that format.
straight up.
Well, that's like a whole other conversation. My thing I want to say about that though is like if you ban Fable the Mirror Breaker, you are hurting the fair decks then.
Yeah.
in my
Mm.
opinion. Like there is like one or two combo decks that play it, but the one of them, Indomitable Creativity, doesn't really see much play
Anymore,
at
yeah.
that anymore, and then the other one is just enigmatic.
Sure.
All right,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Don't ban it. I don't want cards missing from my 80 card pile deck.
Well, oh yeah. Yeah, so Fable the Mirror Breaker, that's the other thing. If you are currently in standard playing a, a mid-range deck that has red in it, just put in Fable the Mirror Breakers and like upgrade your lands to shocks and there you go, you're good. Like
Yeah.
it's just you're done. Easy peasy.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, good stuff.
That reminds me of with you saying you taking old archetypes. I
Mhm.
played in the very first big paper Pioneer tournament that Nerd Rage Gaming hosted. It was like during the winter of like what year did Pioneer come out? Was it 2018?
I want to say I thought it was like
was
2018, 2019 somewhere in there. Yeah.
it was like October of that whatever year it was, I think it was, and
Mhm.
it was
Cuz it was
the tournament
yeah.
they were trying to host was standard. And standard was in such an unhealthy spot that nobody wanted to go play the
Yeah.
standard 10K at all. There
Mm.
was
Right.
two people. There was two people registered for the whole thing, and then a couple of pros and the majority of the community was like adding NRG all throughout the night to switch the format like last minute. Like 10 hours before the start of the tournament, they switched the format and they got up to 300 something attendees that signed up.
Wow.
And I got to go to that, and it was such a blast. I did
Nice.
terrible, but I took old mono black devotion from Theros and tossed new cards into it, and like from original Theros standard, and it
Yeah.
just I did terrible, but I had a blast. And I just remember like there was so many old archetypes with a bunch of the
Yeah.
brand new cards back then. Mono green devotion was crazy during that Pioneer. Like
Oh,
you
I
got
can
Leyline
imagine.
of Abundance. You were splashing for blue for Hydra Krasis. You had Landarel's Gilded Goose, Elvish Mystic,
Mhm.
Nissa, Who Shakes the World. People were casting like Ulamog on turn 3, I think it was.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
Yeah,
crazy.
that
And the
Pioneer.
mono green deck, has continued to stay like kind of crazy. You don't see it on Magic Online anymore because it takes too long to play the deck from tapping and untapping and stuff like
Mhm.
this.
It's
But
also just more of a slot machine now.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Um,
Karn Great Creator, that ban hit that deck something fierce, right? So it's
I
become a lot
don't
less
miss
consistent.
that card at all. That card
Oh,
can
neither do
stay
I, but
gone
I'm just
forever.
yeah.
Yeah.
I played that deck with Karn, and I got so bored of it. It was
Mhm.
miserable to play it and play against it. People played it at tournaments just because it won tournaments.
Sure. Yeah.
But Pioneer, like early Pioneer, like week 1 and going on from there for the first like 4 months was crazy and fun. There was like an updated ban list on every Tuesday, I think it
Yeah.
was.
Oh
And
wow.
there's just
Yeah.
a couple of new cards added every time. Like I am still a big fan of how fetch lands were banned ASAP right off the bat.
Yep.
Otherwise,
Yeah,
it would have
in
been a
the
mini modern.
announcement. In the format announcement, they were like, yeah, no fetches. And
Mhm.
that I think those were the, if I recall correctly, check me if I'm wrong, I think those were the only cards that were pre-banned with that understanding that we're going to ban aggressively as things shake out, but you guys tell us what's busted. Go.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, I believe it
that's
was
super
just
cool.
the fetch lands.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that was really cool, and it definitely gives Pioneer a different feel than Modern, which is important. Yeah.
Mhm.
For those that never played Pioneer, and if you played old Modern, if you want a comparison of a format of how it feels like, think Modern 2013. The power level of it is somewhat similar to that, but a little bit higher.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to diving into it because that's one thing. If Pioneer is a format that is a genuine blind spot for me because I haven't been, playing the competitive paper scene all that much, and so I'm looking forward to getting competitive Pioneer onto Arena so I can start getting half baked bad takes about that format now too. I'm really excited. It's gonna be fun. All right.
Hey, if you need help for like trying to figure out things or whatnot during the streamer event, Carlo and I can help you out.
Ooh,
It's true.
I'm definitely curious.
Sorry to
No, we
volunteer
might.
you, Carlo, but
It's true.
Honestly, yeah, do it.
I did go all the way to Washington D.C., not qualified for the RC, just to play 80 card piles. So
I
I
love
Didn't
it.
you come
just
close?
might. What's that?
Didn't you come close one run?
Yeah, I did. I got up to what did I got? 3 wins. Got 3 wins in one. Yeah, I lost in the semifinals of round five.
Oh, dang.
Five was semifinal. I don't know. Yeah, round four. Round four was
Yeah,
semifinal.
I thought you went
Yeah,
4-1 that one
yeah,
of them.
4-1 in that one. Something like that. Who knows? It was crazy. I played so many LCQs. I will be doing the same when we go to Charlotte for Modern in
I
March.
will
Yeah.
not be going to Charlotte because I don't care for Modern.
You don't
Well,
have to
fair
play
enough.
free spells. You can just play Scion of Dracos, 12 mana artifact dragons.
Still sounds boring.
That might be better than playing 80 card Yorion piles.
If I don't
Wait,
qualify
really?
for this standard season, I for sure will be going to whichever one that is, though.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, so in
any of you
Modern, you
guys
either have
going
to.
to Magic?
Yeah, anyway. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Before I say what I was gonna say, what were you gonna say, him?
Oh, I was just gonna say, like with Modern, you either have to be playing for free or pay drastically under rate for whatever you're getting. If you're playing something that's even remotely fair, you're gonna be left behind. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's a. But actually, that take I think was pretty reasonable based on everything I've seen about Modern, even though I don't play it myself. So, yeah,
Yeah.
bonkers. Anyway, I'm sorry, Jaffer. What was yeah?
All good.
What you got?
I was gonna ask,
Yeah.
any of you guys going to MagicCon Chicago?
Oh, yes.
Oh yeah, I'll be there.
For sure.
It's funny. I was looking at my finances and I was wondering, I don't know if I'm going to make MagicCon work. And then the first one they announced was in Chicago, which for me is like a 3-hour drive. It's like, well, and it's like the last time Chicago this year, I went and I literally was able to get a parking space in town for like $50 for the weekend. And it's like, well, that beats a plane ticket for sure. So sure, let's do that. So yeah, Chicago for me logistically is very easy, and the event was a blast this year, and I have no doubt it'll be better. Or I have no doubt it's going to be excellent again. I hope they give us more space with more tables, because that was the only issue that I that I saw this summer.
I
But
was
anyway,
there last year for Chicago, and I agree. I hope they give us more space, and I do hope they don't have the stage right next to the competitive area again. I really hope they don't do that again. There were so many people complaining about it, and I even was upset about it. Like I live in Wisconsin, so I'm gonna be for sure going to Chicago. It's like a 3-hour drive for me as well.
Yep.
If we can, we should. If there's enough interest from like our communities, we should do like maybe a MagicJank meet and beat or something like that.
Well,
Yeah. So
we definitely
hopefully
do
we'll
need to
be
do.
able
Yeah, we definitely need to do something there. Actually, Jaffer, I get to. I get to. I'm gonna go ahead and say this publicly, just so that you know, because I realize I haven't mentioned this on. One thing that the team does get together for a dinner at every convention, everybody who's there. So that's in the cards. Anyway, yeah, we'll make sure that happens. And actually, the last couple have been Chinese food, so apparently that's maybe the thing moving forward, which I'm cool with that.
True.
Yeah, every city has a cool
last
Chinatown. It
time-
turns out. Yeah, let's go check
Last
it out.
time, so I booked the room for Chicago already, y'all. To make sure I had it, because things seem to be going fast.
Appreciate that. Yeah.
But I have it booked and ready. So I can tell you, if we're all rooming together, I already got it. And it's, instead of doing something that's necessarily walking across the sky bridge to get there, I think I got something that was like 5 minutes away from the venue that was reasonable price.
Sweet.
But
Numbskull and I still gonna have to battle it out to see who fits.
something like this, yes. But we'll figure it out though. I'm sure we will.
For those watching, Numbskull and I have to have a battle to death to see who can sleep on the floor in this place or sleep on the street outside.
Yeah.
Dude, I'll sleep in the
Hopefully it
tub. I
doesn't
don't care,
snow.
man. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just need a place where it's dry. Yeah, give me a spot that's dry to park myself, and we'll be good. Yeah.
Yeah, and they
I love
haven't
it.
made any announcements yet. Obviously we all filled out the stuff for the creator badges. But if any of us get accepted for the creator badge, then we can actually apply to host events in the spectacle play area. So we can organize something this time and say, okay, Team MagicJank is going to host this event, whether it's Commander, Standard, or whatever we want to do. And if it's anything like Vegas's area was, which was absolutely fantastic, then we will have plenty of space to be able to host people.
Heck yeah.
I think it's probably going to depend how much room they rented, because like it's the same venue as last year,
Yeah.
and the same hall as well.
Mhm.
So I'm hoping that they learned their lesson and rented more space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, here's hoping. The other thing that I found really fascinating about the layout last time was the Pro Tour was actually outside of the con proper. Like, if you just walked to the convention hall, like just out off the street, if you knew where to go within that gigantic building,
Mhm.
before anyone actually checked your badge, you could walk right up to the Pro Tour, area. I thought that was
Yeah.
odd. That struck me as a choice. It was fine. It was it's whatever. But yeah, that was one where it's like, wait, you could just like hang out and watch the Pro Tour without even having a badge, like, huh? Anyway. Who knows what the layout will look like this time around? I know I'm sure it'll be completely different. But in any event, dear listener, dear viewer, if you're going to be in Chicago, come find us. We'll be there. And yeah, we'll definitely blow up all of the socials with all that information. It's a couple months away yet. We still have some time, and there's going to be a lot of crazy nonsense happening between now and then. First and foremost being that streamer event that is going to be December 5th for Pioneer Masters. I know we're going to have a great time with that. If you have never been on the Twitch Magic the Gathering category during one of those streamer events, oh man, you're missing out. They are so much fun. So even if you don't care about Pioneer, just watching streamers battle each other, the dynamics in the chats for everybody is it's just different, and it's just delightful. So I highly recommend it. It's a great time. Yeah. And I'm not just saying that because I get the distinct privilege of getting beat up by Crokies and Ashlizzle, in front of, a whole bunch of people who otherwise would have seen me. But that's fun too. And I'm also probably going to get beat up by these two lovely gentlemen in the queue as well, which I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a fun time. I'm looking forward to running into Crokies again, and then his chat coming to my chat and saying I look like a fat version of him.
Nice.
He's a good-looking guy.
And the streamer event is the Thursday before PAX Unplugged. So if anybody's going to PAX Unplugged in Philly, I will be there. So in case anybody wants to play any Commander, I'll have Standard with me because allegedly there are Standard events. But yeah, I'll be there. I'll be there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And last time I went to PAX, I came home with a big card. That's the Gulta that's behind me that you can see. DC, I came home with this Oko that's behind me. Don't ask me where I'm going to put the third card if I get another one, but that'll be
when you get another one.
I'll eventually get one. Yeah.
When he gets the third one, he'll put the Oko right above his bed, just so you can stare at it when he goes to bed.
It's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Awesome.
My God.
Oh, fantastic. Well, did we have any other thoughts, feelings, concerns, anything to share with the class before we go ahead and bring this in for landing, and before I mix more metaphors?
Thank you for having me join the team.
Dude, thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of the team, man. We're glad to have you. And hopefully this is one of many pods in the future. So we definitely want to get you into the rotation as often as you are interested in joining us. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially when Pioneer is, in the news. When Pioneer's in the news cycle, we'll work around it and make sure we can get you. Because yeah, you have an expertise that we definitely want to make sure is represented. So yeah, good stuff. Well, gentlemen, one tradition that we've been doing is the question of the week. I'm just going to call it out because I don't have one. So I don't know, Carlo, did you have anything in mind or?
If you ever had the in owning an oversized card, any card in Magic history of your choice, what would it be?
Rotting Register.
I'm shocked.
That actually makes a lot of sense. I forgot this was your card, but it absolutely is. Yes, 100%. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, like for the longest time, everybody knew me as the Rotting Register guy.
True.
Yeah.
On Twitch, like that's all I would play. Like when Historic was the only place to play that. Turn 1 Elf, turn 2 Registrar, turn 3 Henge.
GG.
I love it. Yeah, GG's. Yeah, pretty much. Dude, that makes me so happy. I honestly forgot that was. It's almost like when you go when you just like replay a video game you haven't played in years, and you're like, oh, that's right, I forgot about this puzzle. Like I know you as Jaffer, and I remember there was this Rotting Registrar guy from when I was getting started streaming, and it's like, oh yeah, no, that was you. Yeah. Anyway, that rules. Yeah, that's a great shout. So for me, one of my go-tos whenever I talk about my favorite card of all time is Battle Screech. I adore that card, but I'm gonna, and I do, but I think if I had to get one just freaking poster of a Magic card, I would definitely have to go with Animate Dead with the original Anson Maddox art.
Ooh.
Oh, that's one of my jams, man. I love that card. It's just it's there's something about it, and I remember pulling these out of bargain bins at my local game store back in the day, and I like only bought 6 of them, and now I'm looking back being like, there were more in there. What were you thinking? Yeah, because they were the alpha ones. They were some white border version, but still, like it's that art and the reanimate. Also, it has my favorite type line of all time: enchant dead creature. It's perfect. Like that's flawless in my opinion. I love it. But yeah, so how about you? So Carlo, we know you have Oko and you have Galta, which are great. So for your third one, what do you want it to be? If it could be anything.
I would love to get Nicol Bolas Dragon God in stained glass from War of the Spark. Nicol
Ooh.
Bolas is my favorite character in Magic ever. I wouldn't discriminate in terms of a version of Nicol Bolas I could get, but it would have to be this. The Nicol Bolas art in War of the Spark was, I tried to get Nifmiz at DC, and somebody got it before me. I was so sad that I had to pick a Planeswalker. You know, woe is me. But you know, I would have to say this Bolas, because the art in War of the Spark was just fantastic. A close second would be Nicol Bolas Planeswalker from the Secret Lair drop with the movie posters, where Nicol Bolas is like getting ready to eat this train. He's got like a train like clenched in his hand, and he's about to eat the train. Yeah, this is also amazing artwork. So one of those two.
Nice. It had to be Bolas, of course. Yeah. I love it. Very cool. Yeah, either of those would look great up on a wall. Oh my goodness. Yeah, and I love the stained glass treatment in War of the Spark. Like that showcase was one of those that it kind of came and went, but I think if we stop and really look at it, I think they turned out really well. Ooh, and the wanted posters.
Got a mini Vraska. Yeah.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
I got that in the last Dream Hack that Carlo and I went to.
Oh yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
I was considering. So you can see the outlet on my wall. It's been there since I moved here.
Yes.
And my chat points out every single day. I was considering just doing this and just leaving that there during my streams.
So you still have a thing floating behind you, but it's a card, not the outlet.
Yeah.
I love it.
Why does your treasure token have a Vraska on it? I don't know.
Why wouldn't
Maybe it's going to cast it next turn.
Yeah, why didn't you attack with Vraska? Like, well, that's not actually on the battlefield. Fun fact. Yeah. Oh, good stuff. Awesome, gentlemen. Well, thank you so much. This was a delight. Is there anything that you want to promote? I mean, other than the streamer events, and we're all streamers. Our links are in the description, so feel free to hit us up there for all of this stuff. Is there anything else coming up that you want to let folks know about that you're putting on that we haven't already touched on?
Just a reminder that in December 21st, I will have my Jaffer's Pioneer Masters Mosh Pit tournament. That will be on December 21st, and that will be a fun time with commentary and casters. So you should go play that if you like the format.
Heck yeah. And even if you don't, come show us how it's done.
I guess just for me, so being one of the ambassadors for foundations, I've been releasing content every day, and I never used to do that before. So it's been a thing getting used to. But I'm actually hosting a standard event at my local game store, the comic book store, tomorrow. And it's a free-to-play event, and we're handing out free Foundations packs, both to people who are getting there. If you play me, you get 3 packs. If you beat me, you get 6 packs. So it's like a bounty event.
Let's go.
So it's going to be pretty fun. But the whole point of it is I'm going to be interviewing people all day about Foundations, their thoughts, their ideas, what they're excited to do with Standard, with new Foundation cards, what cards they like the most, what cards they don't like the most, and why. So expect a big long series coming out of a day of just going to the LGS and playing Standard. So you can find that on all my socials.
That sounds delightful. I'm definitely going to keep an eye out for those because, yeah, good stuff, man. Awesome. And I'm on the places, doing the things. Starting to post deck techs again on YouTube because I'm making silly decks. Might as well post about them. So,
Right.
anyway. Awesome. Well, thank you, dear listener, dear viewer, for being with us for this one. We do appreciate it. If you do enjoy this, please like and subscribe. We put these out every week, and we'll talk about, things that are happening. Definitely provide. Well, actually, no. By the next time we're doing this, we won't quite have Pioneer on our hands just yet, but we'll be even more anxiously awaiting it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have no doubt some crazy nonsense and 6 more products will get announced between now and then. So we'll talk about those. And yeah, in the meantime, yeah, have a good one, everybody. And we'll catch you next time. Later.
Later.